Hello and welcome, I am the Sterling and today we are playing Going Medieval. In the last few episodes, we have been very busy. We've got back down here to the mine so we can start digging the last remaining limestone on the map. We've then been turning said limestone into bricks and of course statues. Also we can build a mega project, the amphitheatre. Now in this episode, we're going to continue the amphitheatre. So grab a cold one and let's get started. So before we start doing anything, let's have a look at where we stand with our materials. When it comes to the raw materials, we've still got plenty of clay sitting on a bit over 8,000. And as for our limestone, it's looking quite good. We are nearly 15,500 limestone. Now as for limestone bricks, we're just under what our max production is, which we've got it set to about 3,000. We're sitting on 2,800. So that's good. That means we're not going to use too much of the limestone that we've got sitting around waiting, though we are still making loads of statues, which will eat up quite a lot of our limestone. Now as for the clay bricks, they are slow going. It takes a long time to make clay bricks. We are sitting on 980 at the moment, which isn't great. It's not going to stop us, it's just going to slow us down. The whole reason I wanted to use clay bricks, we're running out of limestone, and so I was trying to use up as little limestone as possible for this build. I was actually expecting using the clay bricks to speed up this process so I wouldn't have to buy limestone from outside sources and mess about with all that sort of jazz. But not having built many things out of clay bricks, I didn't realize how long it takes to build the bloody things. It's absolutely ridiculous. I have 4 kilns running nearly non-stop and they're at 100% production speed, so they're running efficiently and it is still taking us a very long time to make all these clay bricks. Now look, it's not the end of the world. I'll just continue potting along making the clay bricks, but it is a little bit of a shame that it's taking so long. But live and learn. Next time I do a project, either in this series or another, I've got to keep in the back of my mind that clay bricks take a long time to build. And maybe from the very beginning of the game, have them building up a ridiculous supply of clay bricks, and then I'll never have an issue. Hindsight is a wonderful thing, isn't it? Now, how about I stop bitching about things that I can't control, and let's get stuck into the things I can control, which is planning out the next level of the amphitheatre. So the first thing I'm going to do is add the outer wall, which you've seen me do 3 times now. You don't need to see me do it a 4th. Ta-da! Outer wall done. Now, for this layer, I will not be adding limestone arches. Now, I'll be adding the limestone brick wall that goes in this centre section here. So far, so good. And as you see, nothing has changed as yet. Now, as we start getting closer and closer to the outer wall, the actual process of building this will be sped up because there'll be less things that we need to create, such as flooring and etc. Now, the next thing we're going to do is add the next level of the clay brick wall, which once again is exactly the same as we've already been doing. It's just clay merlons, timber 3 spaces out, and then clay brick wall. And there we go. I tell you, covering what I've done before with timber has really made it difficult to remember how on earth I build this damn thing. Rather than just copying what I'd done before, now I've actually got to use my brain, which I ain't too great at. It's so much easier just to be able to go, okay, that's where I go. I really start to wonder if I do these things just to make life more difficult for myself. Now, moving on, the next thing we need to do is the corners. They're done exactly the same way that we've been doing them at this point. We still will be bringing out the timbers right out to this edge here. Then it's 4 spaces the whole way across. The ladders will be exactly the same. They'll just be moved to here and everything will be the same. As I said before, this entire level will be done exactly the same way the levels below. It's not until we get up near the top levels that things will begin to change. So with the power of editing, let's put in the corner sections. And there we have it. That's the corners done. Well, actually, all but one. I have actually decided to show you how I'm doing this corner, only because for one, it's the last time this corner will be like this, but also because of the way that I tuck it snugly into this corner here. So the setup is the same as the lower level here, just set back by 1. So our corner to this section here will be right here in front of the stairs, as it always has been. And then we'll have our corner beams go from here and here, just like so. The next wooden wall we need to put in will be in line with this wooden wall over here and this wooden wall over here, putting it about there. And just like the rest of the corner builds have been so far, there'll be another wooden wall 2 spaces across here. Done. So we've got a wooden wall here, a wooden wall here, and a wooden wall here. We then need to put a wooden wall on this side and this side here for this beam here to connect to. Now we need to add wooden walls halfway to both of these sides. As I have been doing, we're going to just run with what's already underneath. So there'll be one here, and then 2 spaces back here and here, just like so. Now we just add the wooden beams. And there we go. That is the corner done. Now we just have to add the flooring, the walls, etc., etc. But I just wanted to show you this section here because now every single level will actually be encroaching into this wall. So this outer wall will now become part of the structure holding up the corners. But I'll get to that when we start planning out the corners on the next levels. And then that's the next level planned out and ready to go. So now there's nothing left to do but hit play and let them get to work. It's a real shame. Construction was going so well on the amphitheatre, but unfortunately, it's come to a grinding halt for two reasons. The first one, I can't get timber here quick enough. Between the dogs hauling goods around the castle itself, doing their everyday tasks, and then, on top of that, trying to travel all the way down here to the amphitheatre to drop off the resources needed to build it. They're overworked and understaffed, just like most workplaces. The side effect of this is we can't get the resources down here quick enough to build it. So the settlers themselves are actually traveling all the way back to the castle, getting the resources, coming back here, and then building it. It's just slowed the whole thing right down. So for that reason alone, I've paused construction until the dogs can catch up, topping up all the resources. Only because there's no point building one block a day. And then the other obvious reason that production has come to a halt is we have run out of clay bricks. As you see, we do not have a single one in stock, though we still do have 1,200 limestone bricks, which is really good. Now don't fear, we still have plenty of clay, 8,226 to be precise, and a bucket load of limestone, 1,500. So actually quite a few bucket loads. We are absolutely ripping through the wood. We are down to 5,000. But that's to be expected with the sheer number of things we're actually building out of wood on this task. I wasn't expecting that to actually last anywhere near as long as it has. What this means is we're going to need to start doing a bit of tree farming. So for the moment, I'm just going to get stuck into making some clay bricks, cutting down some trees, and just genuinely getting ourselves back and ready to continue building the amphitheatre. But this will now give me a good opportunity to start doing a couple of other little things that need to be done around Castle Sterlington. Recently, a new feature has been added to the game. A feature that, truth be told, scares the crap out of me. They have added fire. Yes, you heard correctly. Fire. And do you know what that would do to Castle Sterlington? You might look at Castle Sterlington and go, what are you worried about? You're built out of limestone. You're bloody impenetrable. Fire won't do anything. And you'd be wrong. Castle Sterlington has a hard outer shell. The outer walls of everything are built out of some form of solid material, whether it be clay bricks, whether it be limestone bricks. A big chunk of it is built out of solid mass. But Castle Sterlington's innards are all built out of one very flammable material, timber. And if any of this timber sets on fire, I'm afraid that we're going to burn down. And that's not even the scariest part. Because say a fire breaks out in the top of the keep of Castle Sterlington, it's just going to burn the innards out of the castle. You might lose the roof, might lose the library, but overall, the keep itself will still stand. And then we can just rebuild all the internals. It's a pain in the butt, but it ain't the end of the world. And basically that goes for most of Castle Sterlington, excluding the amphitheatre, because if the innards of that burn down, everything comes down because it's all held up with timber. So it'd be an absolute disaster if there's a fire here. But we'll get to that later down the track. Hopefully we never have to cross that bridge. But there is a doomsday scenario based around Castle Sterlington. Because yes, above ground, all load-bearing walls are made out of some sort of solid material, as I said. But the cellars, on the other hand, are not. If you see that all the cellars underneath Castle Sterlington that basically stretch out all over the place, the beams holding all the soil and everything above it are made out of timber. Now, if these burn down, everything above will collapse. And what's above? Yes, as you guessed it, Castle Sterlington. That's where I'm going with this. If we lose the wooden beams, we lose Castle Sterlington. Just trying to get that point across. So I think you're starting to get an idea of why I'm a little bit worried about this new feature. When this was all designed, fire wasn't a factor. Didn't have to worry about it. Built things out of timber. Coming to regret my decisions on a lot of things when it comes to Castle Sterlington. So you're going, okay, Sterling, what's your plan? We're listening to you bitch about it and moan. How are you going to solve this issue? Probably not. I'm going to try and do a few things to help us in the short term, but in the long run, I'm going to attempt this tried and true tactic of just crossing my fingers and hoping for the best. That is majority of what I'm going to do to solve this fire issue. But one of the other features that we can do now, other than cross our fingers, is we can now build a wooden well. Now, what a well does, for those that don't know, is it tends to be a hole in the ground where you can collect water from the water table. And this well is no different. You build this somewhere where there is water under the ground. There will be a pipe underneath, grab some water. Or so I'm led to believe. I've honestly never built one yet, so this will be our first. Now, where am I going to build it? Well, if you haven't noticed, I've allowed the water to escape again. And you're going, well, hang on, are you going to have to deal with the game not running so great? Yes and no. I've dammed both this section here that leads to the aqueduct that fills all these waterfall walls here. And I've dammed this section here that leads to the mini aqueduct that then leads to the temple and its waterfall walls. So the game isn't going to run at its worst because there's not going to be any waterfall walls. But between the sheer size of Castle Sterlington, plus the already size of the amphitheatre and the fact there's so much still planned, and the ridiculous amount of resources I've got in stock, and all our animals, and all the wildlife that's about, the water as a river is hurting the game. How bad, you ask? Well, here, I'll show you. See, stop, start, stop, start, stop, start. It's a little glitchy. I'm hoping it's just while the water is still filling up that this is going to be like this. Because once I move away from the water, things run slightly smoother, but as you see, yeah, still stops and starts occasionally. It's just not as noticeable. Luckily, most of the time when I'm actually running the game, you don't notice it as much because it's during a time lapse. So it sort of hides that. But me, the poor bugger that actually has to sit here and play the game, kind of gets a bit old watching them jerk around like an old-time movie. So, what's my point? Where am I actually going with all this? I can build a well right here, somewhere or other. Why? Because if you remember, we've actually got water underneath Castle Sterlington. Travels under the ground all the way through here and then out the back. So I'm going to attempt to put the well in here because I think it would look quite nice. Now, I don't know if it will actually work. I don't know if it will be able to pick the water up out of the tunnel. I haven't tried it. So we'll learn this together. Bang. Now they can build that and we can actually see if it works. Now, another thing we can do to help defend Castle Sterlington from fires is we can come up to the research tab and research a new little tab here called barrels, which will give us the ability to make small water barrels and large water barrels, which we're going to do that right now. What the water barrels do is we're able to build them anywhere we want around Castle Sterlington, such as up here where there's a lot of timber, in the library, and the settlers will fill them full of water. Then in the event of a fire, the barrels actually get broken and release water putting the fire out, or so the description says. Now the reason why I'm skeptical is because I don't know how many I need, how far the water actually travels. Does it actually just put out the fire in a very small radius? Say I put one big one on top of the keep of Castle Sterlington and a fire breaks out, will it put out all the floors below? See, I don't know how it works. I need to have a bit of a play with it. It's a new feature. Truth be told, haven't touched base on it yet. I've been a little bit preoccupied with other tasks at the moment. Now, I've come to realise that when I built this section here, as I've mentioned in the past, I went far too crazy, and we actually don't need all this space. The farms never needed to be as big as I did make them. This here alone is more than plenty. And as I've mentioned in the last couple of episodes, we've been surviving purely on meat for quite a while, a few in-game years. Little bit of hunting, but majority of it has been in-house, with the natural lifespan of our animals. Ignore the poop everywhere. I'll get to that later. So what do I plan to do with this extra little bit of land we've got at the back here that's just gathering trees? Another new feature that is being added to the game is training equipment. I don't know how long I've been waiting for this. This is a game changer. The ability to be able to train our settlers for combat, this couldn't have come any sooner. This is awesome. So we're going to unlock combat training equipment. Done. So what is the training equipment? Well, there is two different types of training equipment we can actually build. We can build an archery range, so the settlers can train in archery, as the name suggests. And then we can build a practice dummy, which will also train up our settlers in melee, which is very, very good. Because the archery range, even though it's important, it's not life or death. Because of the design of Castle Sterlington, our settlers get plenty of practice in archery. In every single fight that we have, the settlers are using crossbows, bows, whatever they have on hand to attack the enemy. And basically, since the start of this series, this has been the case. A lot of our settlers have a very high marksmanship. Take, for instance, Alfred. He's got a marksman of 31. Elenor, once again, marksman, 31. So training with a bow is not a necessity. But as for our actual melee, once in a blue moon actually gets to swing a weapon because they're usually huddled up out the back here doing jack, we need an outlet to actually be able to train them up and get them proficient at fighting. So this is great. We're going to turn this little area here into a little training ground. For a moment, I was thinking about maybe carving a little area out somewhere and building a barracks and housing our weapons and everything there. And I might still revisit this idea, but for the moment, I think maybe I should just concentrate using our resources for the task at hand, because this one at the moment, I'm already struggling to get the resources for. And it hasn't even been the bloody resources I thought that I'd be struggling to get. It's the resources that I thought I could get with ease. So, yeah. How are we going to go about this? Well, the first thing I think I'm going to do is we're going to delete the path that we've got built here and have them destroy that. And then once they've destroyed that, we can then start planning out the training grounds. We now have a nice clean slate. Well, all but this bush and this patch of mushrooms, we have a nice clean slate. We've also now built our well, which is good. We'll now be able to collect water from underneath via this bucket here. They'll be able to lower it down into the water, collect the water, and be able to take it back up. Fantastic. It does say that it can collect water from any level underneath it. Though, I must admit, it took me a moment to get it working. But then I realized you've actually got to create a hole underneath it in the ground for them to be able to get the water. It doesn't automatically do this. Go figure. They actually need a hole in the ground to be able to get the water under the ground. Now, I'm going to be looking at this well a lot from this angle and from this angle. This angle drives me insane. I've built everything by groups of 2. The bloody well is a group of 3. It's going to be offset. But if I look at it from this angle, you can't tell. So, ta-da! Well's built. Now it's just a matter of going around, fluffing about, building a bunch of buckets everywhere, and find out how they actually work. But that's for a later day. Today, I want to start now building our training grounds. Now, I'm not going to use up this entire area here. The training grounds doesn't actually have to be that big. I'm just going to use this little pocket here. But what I will do is put a path across the bottom here. So first thing we're going to put down is we're going to put down the archery range. I think they should be firing away from everyone, don't you? Don't know how bright it would be having it facing this way so then they all fire into the farmland. I think it might be the quickest way we lose some settlers doing that. So we'll come down to leisure because the archery range and the practice dummies are classed as leisure, which that's a good thing. And we'll put a whole bunch against the wall here, just like so. I think 5 for the moment will be enough. If we need more, I can put them all in. Depends how popular these things are going to be. Next, we need to put in some training dummies. These, I don't see an issue with putting them facing the farmland. Unless a flail goes flailing away and hits someone in the head, I don't really see the issue. So I think we'll just put a whole bunch across the back here, just like so. Now we can go ahead and put in a path. And then I think I'll enclose the area with a small wooden fence because I don't want anyone walking where they shouldn't and copping an arrow to the head. And there we go. I think something like that will suffice. Now let's hit play and let them get to work building it. Fantastic. That's the training grounds now complete. Now, if you didn't notice, I changed up the design a little bit. I just figured this design was more pleasant to the eye. Now, you're probably looking at it going, I can't put my finger on it, but something's missing. And you'd be correct. There are no training dummies, nor are there any targets to shoot at. Why? Because we haven't made them yet. They are a separate unit that we have to make. So we're going to come over to the keep. The first place we're going to go is to the sewing station. And we're going to tell them to make practice dummies. We need 15 textiles to make each one. So we'll just click on that. We'll then come down, we'll select until you have, and they will now create 10 training dummies to which we can use in the training area. Fantastic. But next, we need to create targets. Where would we make them? Well, there's a target right there. Let's see what's in here. Oh, go figure. Practice target. It's going to be made at the bowers table. Who would have thought? So click on practice target. Each one needs 15 sticks. Quite cheap, actually. Then we'll come down, select until you have, and once again, we'll have them make 10. Fantastic. Now they'll get to work building those. Once we have some practice dummies and some targets, they'll be able to use them as recreation, and hopefully we can actually build up some proficiency in both archery and melee. So now what's next on the agenda? Well, I want to get back to work building the amphitheatre, but I've still got the same bloody problem. We still don't have any clay bricks, so I can't get back to work. I've been too busy fluffing about building wells and training grounds and haven't been making any bricks. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit play, let the game run on for a bit, let them build up a nice supply of bricks, and then we can get back to work. Unfortunately, this will all have to wait for another episode, as this is all the time we have for today. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.